Do you miss your grandmother?
I do actually, yeah, I do miss my grandmother. And my grandfather, particularly being in Windsor. For me, Windsor is hers. Sometimes I'd come round and have a bit of tea with her because she had the best teas ever, so I used to get well fed.
On February 3rd, 2026, Buckingham Palace released a quiet two-paragraph statement that hit like a shockwave through royal homes and legal offices across Britain. No grand speech, no balcony moment, just cold, careful words. Prince William had been named the sole beneficiary of one of the most secretive and historically significant private estates in the entire monarchy's history. Not Sandringham, not Balmoral, not Windsor. This was something older, something hidden, something Queen Elizabeth II had guarded for years with near military precision. And when Camilla and her son Tom realized what had been transferred and what had been deliberately kept out of reach, the temperature inside palace walls changed fast. Staff whispered about tension thick enough to cut with a knife. This wasn't polite royal disappointment. This was fury, the kind that rattles portraits and shifts alliances. Because this estate wasn't just land, it was leverage, it was power, it was security for generations. What unfolded next pulled back the curtain on private covenants written in the Queen's own hand, airtight legal clauses, and commercial plans that suddenly had nowhere to land. Tom Parker Bowles had reportedly explored opportunities tied to future expectations, only to find the door firmly shut. And Camilla? She stood there as William signed documents that erased any path forward for her ambitions. No drama, no shouting, just ink drying on destiny. But this story didn't begin in 2026. It goes back to 1944, during the darkest stretch of World War II. King George VI, facing deep uncertainty about Britain's future, quietly purchased an estate hidden in the Chiltern Hills, along the Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire border. It was called the Cedar Estate, and from day one it was built to vanish from public view. No registry spotlight, no press coverage, no ceremony. For more than 80 years, the Cedar Estate lived in whispers among senior courtiers, a shadow holding, protected fiercely by the few who knew it existed, and now that long-buried secret had reshaped the royal chessboard in one ruthless move. And here's the real question you should be asking. Why would the royal family keep an estate secret for 80 years? What could possibly be inside that demanded that level of silence? The answer came in internal briefing notes shared with members of the Royal Correspondent Guild on the morning of February 3, 2026. What those notes revealed stunned even veteran royal historians. The Cedar Estate holds a private chapel with an engraved memorial vault honoring royal family members who served in armed conflict. It houses archival chambers containing 186 oak chests filled with wartime letters and confidential royal communications. There are 72 previously undisclosed royal portraits, including unseen oil paintings of King George VI and Princess Margaret. And then came the bombshell. 14 sealed audio recordings of Queen Elizabeth II in private conversations with Winston Churchill, Nelson Mandela, Ronald Reagan, and Charles de Gaulle. One senior archivist described it in a way nobody could forget. "This is not a museum of history," he said. "It is the raw, unfiltered architecture of royal memory." In simple terms, it was the monarchy's private soul locked away from the world. Now here's where it gets even deeper. Between 2017 and 2021, Prince William had been quietly visiting the Cedar Estate on private weekends, not for photos, not for ceremony. He walked the Cedar grounds with the Queen. He reviewed wartime letters. He helped organize dispatches. He even checked preservation systems in the archive rooms. This wasn't royal performance. This was commitment, Queen Elizabeth noticed. In a handwritten note inside the Covenant Trust, she wrote, "He will inherit more than the crown. He will inherit the silence that preserved it." That wasn't poetic fluff. That was a clear signal of intent. Now let's talk about the legal structure, because it's just as strategic as the estate itself. The Cedar estate does not fall under the Crown estate. It does not sit within the Duchy of Cornwall. It exists under a private legal structure called a covenant trust. Created in 2020 and sealed under Charter 0142, the trust included a delayed activation clause. It would only take effect after 2 moments: the conclusion of the Queen's state funeral and the public recognition of Prince William as heir to institutional responsibility. This wasn't accidental planning. This was precision. Both conditions had now been met. The official statement laid it out in calm, clinical language. Under the terms of the sealed covenant trust, executed by Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II in 2020, the property known as the Cedar Estate shall pass in full and exclusive guardianship to His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, effective immediately. Simple words, permanent consequences. But this is where the story stops being about inheritance and starts becoming about confrontation, because not everyone took the news with grace. Behind closed doors, plans that were never meant to surface began coming into focus. Multiple palace sources had long suspected that Queen Camilla and her son, Tom Parker Bowles, were quietly trying to bring the Cedar estate under their influence, and not casually, strategically. Starting in late 2024, Camilla reportedly pushed for what she called a Windsor Cultural Legacy Center. On paper, it sounded polished. Gourmet retreats celebrating British cuisine, literary salons focused on female royal history, curated tours through the cedar groves, respectable branding, elegant language. But beneath it, bigger ambitions. Tom, according to internal memos reviewed by royal insiders, saw commercial potential. His ideas allegedly included a high-end tasting restaurant inside the old hunting lodge, a specialty food label branded around estate products, and invitation-only culinary events for elite guests. It was business wrapped in royal storytelling. Then came October 18th, 2025, the date that shifted everything. A leaked briefing note revealed Tom's legal advisors had explored whether parts of the estate could qualify for public heritage classification due to its wartime origins. That move could have complicated William's exclusive control and opened the door to shared oversight. Coincidence or calculated maneuver? In November 2025, Camilla hosted a private reception near Henley-on-Thames. Officially, it focused on rural sustainability. Unofficially, one attendee described it as a trial balloon, a soft launch for a shared stewardship model involving her foundation and select donors. William declined the invitation. Calm, direct, no drama. He stayed aligned with the Queen's original structure. Then, just weeks later, he formally activated the Covenant Trust provisions tied to North Acre Hall. And on January 31, 2026, the Land Registry quietly reflected another transfer, one Camilla had not seen coming. The board had shifted. Permanently. North Acre Hall, a sweeping 1,200-acre heritage estate tucked between Wiltshire's ancient hedgerows and Berkshire's rolling hills. For decades, it stayed low-key, a quiet royal retreat used for hunting weekends and sensitive diplomatic meetings during Queen Elizabeth II's reign. On paper, it looked modest. In reality, it was a powerhouse asset with deep agricultural revenue, serious licensing potential, and an 800-year historical thread woven into its land rights. Commercial analysts reportedly labeled it uniquely strategic. Not flashy, strategic. Now here's the twist. Documents dated September 8, 2022, just weeks before the Queen passed, showed she had quietly reclassified North Acre Hall from a shared Crown estate holding into a personal sovereign asset. That move changed everything. It meant she could transfer it privately through her will instead of letting it flow through automatic succession. In Appendix R3, she allegedly wrote, "Let North Acre remain with the child who bears the burden of our future. Let it be not merely shelter, but sanctuary." That line carried weight. And it bypassed both Prince Charles, now king, and Princess Anne entirely. Inside palace circles, the reaction was subtle but sharp. Not loud outrage, more like shockwaves under calm water. According to archivists, it was the first move of its kind since Queen Victoria's Highland estate reallocation in 1872. Only 2 living witnesses reportedly knew beforehand, Lady Sarah Chatsworth and the Queen's legal advisor, Sir Alistair Denholm. The envelope was sealed with 3 chilling words: "For the reign after me." That's not random. That's deliberate. Meanwhile, Camilla had been making her own moves. By 2023, leaked aid notes suggest she and Tom were quietly lobbying to fold North Acre Hall into a royal culinary heritage project, publicly pitched as farm-to-table revival. Privately supported, insiders claimed, by luxury investors abroad. The concept? A 5-star boutique hotel, a heritage cooking academy, and a polished rebrand as a high-end Windsor destination. A 2025 feasibility study valued licensing rights alone at £48 million over 10 years. Big numbers, big stakes. One senior courtier summed it up bluntly. Camilla thought influence secured the estate. The Queen secured it in ink. What followed, palace sources say, was a pressure campaign. Opinion pieces began surfacing late 2025, hinting the monarchy needed to rebalance generational assets. Then came an alleged lease inquiry on North Acre's Southern Orchard Tract, denied fast by the Duchy of Cornwall legal team. By November 2025, insiders described Camilla's reaction not as anger, but something colder, controlled, calculating, outmaneuvered by legacy itself. And then came Clarence Hill Estate, the Queen's most personal covenant. In January 2026, Princess Anne reviewed private correspondence in Windsor's Oak Room. Folded inside a leather folio marked W. William George was a codicil outlining Clarence Hill, a Chilterns property purchased in 1947 by King George VI. Off-book, shielded from Parliament, designed as a reserve for direct heirs only. This wasn't casual estate planning. This was long-game strategy. The Queen's directive was written in her own hand, sharp, personal, impossible to misread. I entrust Clarence Hill to my grandson William in full title and spirit, free of encumbrance, free of shadow. Let it remain outside the Crown estate, immune to politics, immune to scandal. This land is a covenant, not a commodity. Those weren't decorative words. They were armor. That line, immune to scandal, carried weight. Sources say the Queen had grown cautious about public controversies swirling around Prince Andrew and the high-profile ventures of Prince Harry. To her, legacy wasn't just property, it was reputation. Clarence Hill was meant to be insulated, untouched by headlines, speculation, or commercial pressure. A steady compass for William and Catherine's future. Camilla reportedly learned of the transfer on January 20th. Within hours, she had gathered legal advisors at Highgrove, with Tom by her side. Around that time, Tom had faced setbacks tied to branding complications involving the royal crest. Clarence Hill, insiders suggest, looked less like sanctuary and more like opportunity. Leaked internal emails later revealed bold language. Imagine the launch, from the Queen's garden to yours. By January 23rd, a proposal had reportedly been drafted under a newly registered entity called Hill and Crown Limited, with Tom listed as executive director. The concept? A boutique hospitality and agricultural venture centered on sustainability and regenerative luxury. The pitch framed it as forward-thinking and climate-conscious. The subtext felt strategic. But here's the twist. The codicil had already been notarized. The legal transfer structure was sealed. By the time Hill and Crown Limited formalized its paperwork, the estate's status had already been secured within the Duchy of Cornwall trust framework. The window had closed. Then came January 28th. An anonymous whistleblower sent internal Hill and Crown presentation materials to the Lord Chancellor's office, raising concerns about potential commercial encroachment on a protected royal holding. The deck reportedly included branding mock-ups and projected valuations tied to Clarence Hill. The reaction inside palace circles was swift, not theatrical, decisive. Soon after, William and Camilla met privately at Windsor during a family lunch. Sources describe the exchange as brief and firm. William reportedly made his position clear. Clarence Hill does not exist to be bottled, branded, or sold. It is the last sanctuary of my grandmother's soul, and I will protect it as I protect my wife and children. Within 48 hours, Hill and Crown Limited was dissolved. Just like that, gone. Tom stepped back from 3 scheduled public appearances, citing stress-related fatigue. No press conferences, no dramatic denials, just silence. But inside palace walls, the message was crystal clear. King Charles avoided direct confrontation, yet later confided to Princess Anne with a line that insiders say still echoes through the corridors. Elizabeth always knew who would hold the crown, not just wear it. That wasn't casual reflection. That was acknowledgement. Then came Greystone Downs, and this is where things escalated fast. Greystone Downs is a protected 400-acre woodland estate, complete with a Tudor hunting lodge from 1578 and a private stone chapel lined with 17th-century relics. Queen Elizabeth had preserved it for over 40 years, treating it not as a showpiece, but as a moral archive. Passing it to William wasn't only practical, it was symbolic. It meant restraint, stewardship, discipline. Camilla and Tom reportedly saw something else: potential. Financial estimates placed the estate's value near £80 million. Recovered planning documents from a former financial advisor suggested bold ideas: luxury eco-lodges priced at £5,000 per night, curated dining experiences, and a members-only culinary circle targeting ultra-wealthy international clients, all wrapped in refined branding language about heritage and sustainability. Behind the scenes, legal inquiries allegedly probed for loopholes, anything that could justify shared oversight. A Luxembourg-registered entity, Stag Crown Hospitality Limited, appeared weeks before the Queen's will became public. Draft proposals referenced wellness conversions and selective redevelopment concepts. Ambitious? Absolutely. Guaranteed? Not even close. Princess Anne reportedly intercepted correspondence that raised red flags. Her reaction, according to insiders, was calm but firm. She later briefed William directly. William responded with precision. On February 3, 2026, a sealed codicil was formally entered into the Royal Archives. Signed and notarized in 2021, it explicitly prohibited any commercial conversion or brand exploitation of Greystone Downs without William's direct approval. It wasn't reactive, it was preemptive. The Queen had anticipated pressure and blocked it years earlier. One palace staff member recalled the moment the clause was read aloud. Camilla reportedly reviewed it twice before speaking quietly. No shouting, no theatrics, just realization. 2 days later, William visited Greystone Downs with Catherine and their children. No statements, no interviews, just a quiet walk along the frozen lakeside at sunset. The message didn't need explaining. Then came Green Heath Estate, another protected woodland spanning over 500 acres near a historic Roman road. Some had assumed it was minor land. It wasn't. Attached to it was a £37 million private conservation trust built over decades through strategic transfers approved by the Queen herself. What looked overlooked was, in reality, fully secured. Again, for years, that £37 million trust had been building quietly in the background, invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't public, it was strategic. When Tom learned the fund was attached to Green Heath, Insiders say he was furious. He had reportedly envisioned a media-driven culinary wellness retreat on the land, backed by overseas luxury investors and a European spa group. The pitch? Exclusive dinners, organic wines, locally sourced produce, carefully curated oils, and estate-branded goods presented to elite guests and foreign dignitaries. The machine was already in motion. Then, January 30th, 2026, hit like a wall. Princess Anne, acting through the Crown Trust Authority, finalized and sealed the asset transfer, backdated to December 28, 2025. William received full legal control of Green Heath. The trust transferred with it. Clean, final, locked. That same evening, final documents were delivered to Clarence House, along with something unexpected, a private audio recording of Queen Elizabeth outlining her vision for Green Heath in her own voice. She described it as a secure legacy zone dedicated to environmental education, youth rehabilitation initiatives, and long-term stewardship under William and Catherine's patronage. Clear, direct, personal. Camilla reportedly called an emergency meeting with Tom and legal advisors. According to leaks, discussion quickly turned to possible legal challenges. The idea of contesting the Queen's clarity at the time of the deed was allegedly floated, a move that would have ignited a constitutional firestorm. Within 48 hours, King Charles issued a private but firm warning. Any attempt to undermine Elizabeth's will would be viewed as an attack on the Crown's integrity. When news of that warning surfaced in the press on February 2nd, public reaction was swift. Commentators, historians, and constitutional experts openly defended the sanctity of the late Queen's directives. Meanwhile, Catherine made a quiet visit to a Windsor Children's Hospice that same day. No speeches, no theatrics, just presence. The contrast spoke volumes. At 9:46 a.m. on February 3rd, William arrived at Green Heath alone. Navy coat, one aide, no cameras. He signed the charter establishing the Green Heath Royal Future Trust, permanently closing the estate to commercial development and aligning it with the Queen's environmental vision. As he finished, a Rolls-Royce reportedly paused at the estate's western boundary. Camilla stepped out briefly, observing from a distance. No words exchanged, no confrontation, just silence. By evening, a previously scheduled culinary event was canceled. A short statement followed, expressing support for the King's reaffirmation of the late Queen's legacy. Then came Oakidge Estate, the final chapter. A sealed envelope bearing Elizabeth II's cipher was delivered to Prime Minister Harriet Shawcross on February 3rd, confirming its transfer to William. Unlike Balmoral or Sandringham, Oakidge operated outside standard Crown estate structures. One last move, one final safeguard. Oakidge wasn't just another property on a ledger. It was a private holding shielded by a unique clause in the Queen's will, a sweeping pastoral refuge bordering the Thames forests, once used by King George VI for hunting, with the quiet ruins of a Tudor chapel hidden deep within its grounds. Valued at an estimated £118 million. Yes, but the price tag missed the point entirely. For Queen Elizabeth II, Oakidge was personal. It was where she retreated during family storms, where she reflected, where young William spent early summers learning what duty actually felt like, not on a balcony, but on frosted grass at sunrise. Tucked inside the estate library, beside pressed lavender, one journal entry spoke softly about stewardship and guarding legacy. No drama, just intention. Even as the transfer finalized, whispers swirled about possible technical challenges. William didn't react publicly. He ordered a full historical audit, restoration logs, security costs, decades of documentation, quiet verification, no spectacle. But Elizabeth had already sealed the matter. Her will included a clause insiders referred to as anticipatory obstruction, designed to block challenges from outside the direct line of succession. When it was read aloud to senior royals, the room reportedly went silent. No arguments followed. The structure was airtight. At one point, George asked his father, "Will this be ours forever?" William's reply was simple, "As long as we protect it." That wasn't ownership talk. That was responsibility. Soon after, a letter from the Queen's longtime solicitor arrived. It carried one final handwritten passage. "Oakidge belongs not to power, but to patience. Let the one who bears the weight of the Crown's future carry it forward." Signed, Elizabeth R. Clear. Final. Unmistakable. Step back and look at what she accomplished. Estate by estate, clause by clause, she built a framework designed to preserve legacy over opportunity. Not loud, not reactive, strategic. William's response matched that tone. No interviews, no outrage. He signed charters. He honored environmental and educational commitments. He let the legal architecture speak for him, and it spoke clearly. As dawn broke over Windsor that February morning, there were no fireworks, no declarations, just sealed trusts, completed transfers, and a grandson walking land entrusted to him with purpose, not a trophy, a responsibility. For those watching closely, the message was simple. Legacy isn't about branding or expansion, it's about stewardship. And this chapter, it closed exactly as Elizabeth intended, firmly, quietly, permanently.